Hi everyone, if you're new to my channel, my name is Nicole. I do all sorts of videos about pale skin, so foundation reviews, swatches, concealers, lipstick swatches, a whole bunch of stuff like that. So as you probably know, Fenty released a concealer as well as expanding their foundation range. So it just so happened with the timing of my kiddos that I was able to actually go to Sephora on the day that it launched today and take a peek at the shades, and I decided to go ahead and buy the new lightest yellow tone shade, which is 105, as well as the concealer that is 105. So I did take a few swatches of the other two concealers around 105, so 100 and 110. 100, I'll show a picture that I took of my hand and they are labeled on there. 100 seemed like it would be something that would go pretty gray under my eyes. It didn't have a lot of yellow or peach or pink. It was just quite light and leaning to the pink end. The 110 shade seemed a little bit more neutral, but still kind of pinky peach. And then 105 is quite yellow. So my skin coloring on myself is that very pale with muted yellow undertones. I don't have any excellent perfect foundation matches, but a couple shades that work really well for me are the Clinique Even Better in Shell CN 0.5 and Smashbox Studio Skin in 0.1. Both of those are pretty good shade matches, and a lot of the new really fair shades are pretty neutral, and so to see something that is lighter than NARS Siberia is always an exciting thing, because there are some of us out there that aren't quite neutral, that have a little bit more of an undertone either way. I would say on me, this feels like a pretty good color match. I can also wear the shade 100, and I'll link the video review I did on that, though I did do fairly light coverage in that video. I've always had a little trouble wearing this formula. It's not the best wearing formula foundation wise for me. But let's go ahead and take a look at the swatches. I'm going to do foundation comparison swatches and concealer comparison swatches, so we can talk a little bit more about what other options there are kind of in this very fair shade range. This is a little bit darker than some of the extremely pale things that are out there, and some of those super pale things really don't work on my skin. Things like the Estee Lauder Double Wear in Alabaster 0N1, NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop in Pale. Those I do like to mix with something else. So let's take a look at the swatches and we can talk about it in a minute. So foundation swatches first. NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop in Fair, which is the third shade. Fenty Pro Filter Concealer in 105. Fenty Pro Filter Foundation in 105. Fenty Pro Filter in 100. Smashbox Studio Skin in 0.1, generally a good shade match for me. L'Oreal True Match in W0.5, one of the new shades. Estee Lauder Double Wear in 0N1 Alabaster, NARS Sheer Glow in Siberia, and NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop in Pale. So Siberia it dries down darker than this does. This I feel like goes a little darker than I thought. So I also swatched it up here. I feel like it looks a little lighter up here. I don't know. It seems similar to this fair shade from the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop, until this one fully dries down, and then it goes a fair bit darker. The 100 shade I feel like looks a little bit peachy on me, and it's just a different kind of tone. Sometimes I feel like it can be kind of tricky because you've got formulas like the Sheer Glow and the True Match, which take a long time to really fully dry down. If you look around the edges, it's quite a bit darker than in the main part of the swatch. So it's a little confusing, but I do feel like on me, this ends up being a pretty good color for me, probably partially because the undertone is really somewhat similar to my face. So it is, I would say, maybe a step up, one shade lighter than Siberia, which I think is great because that is a color that just isn't really represented that well as far as foundation goes. Cover FX Power Clay Concealer in N Fair 1, my current favorite concealer. MAC Studio Fix Concealer in NC10. Fenty Pro Filter in 105. NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop in Pale. Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in C1, NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in Chantilly, Tarte Shape Tape in 8B Porcelain Beige, the new lightest shade, Colourpop No Filter Concealer in Fair 02, and Colourpop No Filter Concealer in Fair 06. So as far as the concealers go, I really don't have anything like this. This is a lot more yellow. When I first swatched it in store, I was just like, whoa, is this a corrector shade? What's going on? Then I compared it with next to the foundation, and it was just such a similar tone. I thought, you know, if I'm going to be wearing this 105 foundation, why not just have a concealer that tonally is very similar and has the same undertones and all that. So, but I thought it also might work with my discoloration a little bit better. Sometimes these like very fair kind of neutral shades will just make my under eye area look kind of gray. So of the things that I swatched, stuff that will do that is like the really pale shades, like the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop in Pale, and the Colourpop No Filter in Fair 02. That formula does not agree with my face at all, and the Fair 02 shade is just too light. I would have to use a corrector first, and correctors on me don't work that well just because my under eyes are creasy and wrinkly and crepey and all that jazz. They're dry. They are in a rough shape. So I did record doing this earlier in the morning, and my skin was just a little too dry, and the foundation looked patchy and the concealer looked super patchy. So I'll go ahead and just show you a little clip of how it looked the first time I applied it, and it was just patchy. My under eyes were too dry, and this does seem to dry down pretty quickly, and it's fairly matte, and that combined with like dry, wrinkly under eyes, not a good combo. This side is doing a little better, but it's just, this is a problem I have with under eye concealer. I don't know that it's necessarily this concealer, just like my under eyes are just not doing so hot, and so things tend to look pretty just like patchy and dry and cakey. So I took all of it off and redid my skincare, and the second time I applied it, which is the other demo you see, it definitely went on better, and when we zoom in you can see that it's looking much better under the eyes. So next I'm gonna go in with the Pro Filter Concealer in 105 as well. I like how the concealer is like a little tiny foundation bottle. All right, I ran out of space, but I wanted to get my under eyes set, and I just set it the same way that I set the rest of my face using the damp sponge. Right now my under eyes are looking pretty good. Looks like it's not really creasing anymore, which is great. And it doesn't look nearly as patchy as it did when I first put it on, when my under eyes were a little drier. This is my problem under eye. It tends to get a lot more cakey looking, especially right here, than the other eye. In my rush to get this video going, I kind of had some issues with my makeup, which I'm going to touch up now with the concealer and see how it does. One thing was beyond my control. I had a little transfer from my lipstick down to my chin, so I'm just gonna touch up that spot. I just used a Q-tip to just kind of like lightly lift up the lipstick, but it did take off a little foundation too. So I'll try a little touch up. This is a very unfortunate part of my face too, because I have that seborrheic dermatitis. So it's often quite flaky right there. That was too much. I feel like that looks pretty good. I'm also gonna do around my mouth, since I took off my lipstick and took off a little foundation as well. All right, that worked well. I'm also going to use this as eyeshadow concealer since I'm going to redo my eyeshadow because it was just a muddy mess. Eyeshadow primer. Did I say concealer? I often use the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define in C0.5, which is very pink toned. And that one I can't really use under my eyes, but I do find it works really well as an eyeshadow primer that also has a good amount of coverage. Oh, this dries really fast. I probably should have only done one eye. I feel like this has a tiny bit less slip and maybe a little bit more coverage than the Makeup Revolution because that one I can just kind of smear on and smear it out. But this I feel like is really, I mean that really covered those freckles quite well. Which covering freckles is no easy feat. My Cover FX Power Play Concealer in N-Fair 1 plus the NARS Light Reflecting Setting Powder pressed as my like holy grail combo. I can get that to not crease all day, not look dry all day, and on a 38-year-old kind of loose-skinned lady, that's really surprising. That combo has worked so well for me the past year, and it was part of my 2018 beauty favorites. And I hope that the Fenty will work as well, and I am doing a wear test on the concealer primarily. Because I have done a wear test on the foundation before, but who knows, maybe it will wear better with the skincare I have on today. I will put the details of the skincare I used today. My skin type at the moment is pretty dry and acne prone. Something's been kind of breaking me out and I'm not really sure what it is. I think it might be some primers I've been using. I don't know. Today I didn't use a primer. In general, I prefer, if I can get away with it, no primer, no powder, just on my skin, the least amount of layers possible works best. Some foundations for me, though, I do need to use a primer. And this one definitely felt like with this foundation, I wanted to set it just because it was starting to crease. And that may have been due to the fact that I used a little bit more emollient moisturizers underneath. I'm going to go ahead and set it with my NARS Light Reflecting Setting Powder. Because I can see it's already creasing a little bit. This powder works best for me. Powder and my face don't really get along all that well. But yeah, so anyway, I'm very excited to do the wear test on this concealer. Of course, if it doesn't work that great today, I will definitely try prepping with different skincare. To me, that's a big part of foundation and concealer testing, is mixing up the skincare I'm wearing underneath. I feel like almost so many different foundations often require a little bit of a tweak, plus my face is constantly changing. Sometimes it's just so dry and other times it's much more combo oily and dry. Right now I'm just going through a very dry patch and I'm not really sure why, but that's where I am right now. So I will check back with you in the evening and we'll take a look to see how the concealer fared under my eyes, and we'll look at the foundation too just for kicks, but I don't have super high hopes just because in general it does break down in the T-zone on me. But I'll be back in a few to show you how it's wearing. All right, so it is 8:55 p.m. I put this on around, I would say 11:15, so we're just short of 10 hours, and it's looking pretty good. There's definitely some issues with both the foundation and the concealer, but nothing huge, which is nice and a little bit surprising. So it did get, oilier and kind of break down a little bit on my nose, which is what has happened to me in the past with this formula. For some reason, it's just like my oils and this foundation just don't get along that well. And it's gotten a little bit, kind of patchy and cakey looking around my mouth, which again is a total problem area for me. And same kind of thing like under my lip. Where I did that touch up with the concealer looks fine. I don't see any like noticeable line where the concealer was. I did get a little creasing after I set it, and I don't feel like it's gotten worse. but it just generally looks kind of cakey and a little patchy. So the concealer, you can see, hopefully, it's creased a little bit compared to where we left it, and it's hard to see with my eyelashes, but basically where it creased, it left some kind of blank spots. But fortunately, the only place that happened is like right up where I also have eyeshadow, so it's not very noticeable. And same on this eye. But it didn't do any of that down here, which can definitely happen with other concealers. So I feel like that's a really good sign. I did have a lot of moisture under my eyes because I knew that they were super dry today. So that gives me some hope that if I use a little bit less like thick emollient moisturizer under my eyes, that it might be one that I can get to not crease all day. So that's really promising. All right, so yeah, I'm really happy with how the concealer worked out. I feel like it's definitely a formula to look into. I like that they have more than one undertone in the kind of very fair area. A lot of times shade ranges on the very pale and very deep ends of the spectrum, there will be one option and then kind of a jump. So it's nice to see a little bit more of a different undertone options within that one depth. And that kind of yellow concealer is definitely more unusual option, and I don't wear full coverage concealer, but it does feel like this could go full coverage pretty easily. It's nice and thick in a pleasant way, and I'm encouraged by how well it wore under my eyes despite the issues they're having right now. So I'm definitely going to continue trying it out. I'm going to try to get this foundation to work better for me because this color really I feel like is a quite good shade match for me. Let me know if you have any tips to getting to the foundation to wear better on you. I've just always had the same kind of problems, and I'd really, now that this color is available, I would really like to get it to work better. So if you had any success getting an improvement in wear out of the foundation, I would love to hear from you. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video today. I really appreciate it. And if you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, please do subscribe. If you haven't already, turn on the bell if you want a notification every time I post a new video. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.